This is an interesting one. This is GT Racing 2002, a full conversion mod for F1 2002 from EA Sports, released back on November 30th, 2002. It was developed by the Simbin development team, otherwise known as SBDT, and they were a modding team that had started creating GT mods for F1 2001 and finally released their fully packaged finished version in 2002 of this mod. This is the version 3 really of the GT Racing mod, but it's the culmination of all the different mods and things that they had been making up till then. And this is quite the compilation indeed. This mod fully transforms F1 2002 to be a GT racing game. And for those of you familiar with Simbin, of course, went on to become a full studio producing games for many years, most famously GTR and GTR2. And this really is, if you want to think of it, a beta version or an earlier version of GTR. GTR itself came out in 2005, and so this predates it by quite a bit, but all of the bones are there, and it's amazing what this team was able to eke out of the G-Motor engine that powered the F1 2002 game. So Simbin as a gaming studio was founded by Henrik Roos, who's a professional racing driver, and Ian Bell, who had been a part of this modding team. But the modding team that put this game together specifically, or this mod, call it a game because it really is a game, you'll see, but that team itself was much, much bigger, and it was really headed up by Ian Bell, who of course went on to found the full company, but also Doug Arno. There's many others involved as well, but I wanted to call out Doug specifically. Doug did most of the physics, AI, vehicle work on this, and certainly was a passion project of all of those involved. But the effort that was put in to build a mod of this sophistication is truly remarkable. The GT Racing 2002 mod has some pretty impressive features, and sticking through some of the archives, looking over a press release that came out when this mod came out, highly anticipated. It had 37 different cars from the 2002 GT Racing season. These are all different makes and models, but 37 different paint schemes and drivers to race against. If you remember, F1 2002 only has 22 cars to race against, which raced in F1, so having 37 different cars that you can race against at the same time was quite a lot more, and it was impressive that they could do that with the game. Each of the cars had remodeled car dynamics from the earlier versions of this mod with new aerodynamics that made them the 2002 spec. There's new tire models involved. There's 4 different tire compounds. Each have their own slip curves and wear and temperature. The manual goes on to explain what's actually different between them, but it's pretty cool. There's dynamic suspension models, and I thought it was pretty funny in the write-up in the README of the game. They take a dig at Grand Prix Legends, saying some of this stuff couldn't be done in Grand Prix Legends, but clearly we're trying to aim to make the superior sim of the time. With braking, they were able to simulate heating up and cooling down of the brakes, so when you come out of the pits, the brakes are cold and you have to heat them up before they'll work well. And they actually do fade later on in the races as well, or if you heat them up too much as you're racing. There's a completely reworked AI system in the game, which is not quite as good as the later GTR, GTR2, but compared to F1 2002, the AI are amazing in this, and certainly they had to do a lot of work to get them to to race the GT car as well. So pretty crazy stuff with that. There are 7 new tracks that are put into the game, developed specifically for GT racing and model out the GT season approximately on top of the normal tracks that are available for F1 2002. So we'll look at all those in a bit, but brand new tracks for it. It has a 10-race GT championship that has separate point systems for the GT cars and NGT cars, and there's apparently brand new interiors, exteriors to all the cars. It's amazing. It's very, very impressive, and there's very little about this game that's going to remind you that you're playing F1 2002. That really feels like an earlier version of GTR 2. So when you first launch up the game, you'll be brought to this menu screen, and this looks a lot like the UI for the EA Sports F1 games, but this is actually a completely separate application that's skinned to look a lot like the normal menu, but it sits on top of the game, and it's where you initially come to when you launch. In this menu, you can change things about the field that you're going to race against. So by default, you're going to race against both the GT cars, which is the faster class, and the NGT cars, which are the slower class. But you could change this to just race against the GT cars or the NGT cars if you want. So you can select what type of race. You can change the number of opponents that you're going to race here, of course, much beyond the normal limits of F1 2002. You can also change a few other things about it as well. But this completely custom app was added so that they could add new options that they couldn't add just in the normal UI. This separate application also lets you make user profiles that are specific to GT racing. That's important because there's a lot of custom parameters in the player file that gets generated for this game that makes it behave differently than the regular F1 games. So a lot of neat features and adjustments here that would normally be in other mods, just things that the README files would go tell you to edit in text and things like that. So a whole separate app built just to make that experience a lot easier. But then we jump into the regular game, and we're sitting here on the main screen. You can see I've got selected Lister Storm Racing, the Lister Storm car I always gravitated towards in the GTR games. I'm not sure why. I think it's just very cool looking, but a really neat car from the 2002 season. And we can take a quick look through the cars that are in the game. The selection menu lets you switch between all the different cars. So we've got the GT and NGT cars, of course. So we start off with the Viper GTSR, and I believe this is the one that Christophe Bouchou drove to the championship in 2002, but with the super loud Chrysler V10, these cars had so much power and are really difficult to control. You'll see that in a bit. We'll scroll down. We have a few different Vipers to choose from. Within some of these as well, there's multiple different teams or paint schemes to pick beyond that. We have the Ferrari V12 Ferrari 550, I believe. It doesn't say it anywhere here, but another great GT car to race. Another Dodge Viper team. A few more of these. The Lister Storm that I have selected right now with the Jaguar V12 in it. Not quite as fast in a straight line as the Viper is, but still a comparable car. When we come down to the Proton 993, I always like the older style 911, 993s that Proton was using. I think this one was featured actually still in GTR 2 for the 2003 championship, and that was the one I always picked itself. For BMS, the 550 Ferrari as well, and Ferrari Red, of course. Another 993 for Alda Motorsport. Keep going through here, still with the GT cars, more Vipers. Always like this Viper in red with the white pinstripes. I think that was more like the catalog photos you'd see. And we do have a Lamborghini Diablo from Ryder Engineering. Great car. I think it only had a few starts in 2002, but really love the diverse collection of different cars that raced in the series then. Another 550 from Dart Racing. So then we get to some of the NGT cars. This is a Ferrari 360 from JMB Racing. This one, of course, featured in GTR 2 as well. Most of these cars are in GTR 2, but there's a few different ones. We got the 996 with the newer style body from Chrysler Motorsport. I love that livery with the teeth on it, like that, a big old mouth on the front of the car. Keep coming through. Some more Porsches. Plenty of Porsches to pick from, but that's kind of the default NGT car from this time period anyway, but always fun to race. They have definitely a difficult handling characteristic in this. And then scrolling down, we've got the Marcos Mentara, I think LM600. This car, I think, only raced in the Spa 24 hours in 2002, but a really neat car, a Chevrolet V8 powering it. Definitely one of the most unique body styles as well, and one that looks fast, maybe wasn't quite fast enough. And then we got a couple more. We got another Lamborghini. towards the end here, and that's it. So quite a field of cars to pick and choose from. I do want to try a few different ones of these. We'll start out with the Lister Storm because that's definitely one of my favorites here. So we can take a look at the tracks, and you'll see here all of the different tracks you can choose from. All of the tracks in the normal F1 2002 game have been redone with their AI, so they all support the GT cars. I think they all have enough garage stalls and everything for the GT cars. Then they added on top those additional tracks, and those are the ones at the top. We have Manicourt, Silverstone. We actually have Sugo, which was not part of the FIA GT Championship. I'm not actually sure why that's included. I think it's in the place of another track that was, but a really cool track actually to race around. We've got Valencia, which I don't think was raced either. I think they raced in Jarama in 2002, but taking the place there. But Brands Hatch, Oschersleben, which is a cool track, normally for motorcycles, I believe. We've got Spa, of course, and this one is based off of, and all the tracks that are part of the normal game, they're based off of the ones that came with F1 2002, but every single track for the GT Championship has had billboard updates and graphical updates and maybe some track geometry updates. I'm not entirely sure, but they certainly look the part. To round out the championship, Misano for Italy. We've got Donington, of course. This track's beautifully well done. And we've got Mugello to round out the championship. So that's the 10 rounds that would be in the actual championship that you would race as a part of this mod. But then, like I said, you've got the rest of the normal F1 tracks. So if you want to go race at, Monza or Indianapolis or Hockenheim, you could go do that. And so there's a ton to try out here. Never mind the abundance of other add-on tracks that were made, but all of these have balanced AI and would provide a great experience. So quite a lot to do with this mod. So I want to do a few different short races just to show off some of the different cars and tracks. And I figure I can start in my Lister Storm here at Donington Park and see what that's like. All right, we're on the familiar race overview screen. I just wanted to show you here before we jump in the car how detailed this mod is yet again. If I go to the garage for the vehicle setup and go to into our advanced setup, all of the different cars for every single team all have icons and everything. So this all looks very professional. And so normally, you wouldn't have these pictures here for add-on mod stuff. All the setups are accurate for every car as well. Just really feels very well polished. All right, so we're parked in the pits here, and we'll pull out to do a couple qualifying laps, pull away into the pit lane. You can see all the cars lined up, though. Donington, like I said before, is not one of the stock tracks from F1 2002. So remember that as we go and drive around the track, just how well done it is. But we'll come out of the pits itself, and I mentioned earlier that the cars are hard to drive, and they're absolutely super hard to drive. It's very easy to spin out on throttle, brake way too deep into the corners. You definitely have to get the tires heated up and the brakes heated up as well. Very unforgiving, a lot like GTR1, although I think GTR1 is even easier than this, or a little kinder. And I know GTR2, there were a lot of complaints when that first came out that it was a lot easier than GTR, maybe less realistic. I don't know what the most realistic is, but I do know that this is a lot more challenging generally. We'll come up the hill, down a second gear. So you can see the detail on the track is quite impressive, especially for not being, a stock track in the game. It's honestly much better than the stock tracks. I say that like the stock tracks are actually that good. They're very, very similar to how they are in F1 Challenge, if you're familiar with that. So this clearly looks a step beyond that. It's not quite as good as the tracks would be once we did get to GTR, but you can see the bones are there. The cockpit of this Lister, a little more basic, obviously, but everything is there pretty much. No hands on the steering wheel, but I don't think that came until GTR2 anyway, and we'll come through the hairpin. Pretty much locking up the tires on every corner. Come to the top of the hill, one of the toughest corners to get a good turn in on. Just easy to run wide there. So coming out of the final corner, I don't think this is going to be that good of a lap, but I want to try to put one more together. Best lap right now is a 1:29, I think. Ferrari coming out of the pits in front of me. I think this is one of the GT ones as well. Oh, he's quite slow. Get up the inside as we head down the hill. Very tricky track in any car, never mind one of these beasts. Oh, Oh, just locking up the tires the whole way. It definitely feels like there was a pursuit of difficulty, and difficult meaning a sim was more realistic back in this time period. I remember every sim that came out seemed to be much harder than the last one, and it was because it was more realistic. And who actually knows what the most realistic is, but it's just very much a product of its times that I'm locking the brakes into every single corner. We'll come across the line. You can see everything is here, and it's not hard to see why Simbin ended up getting the official license to the FIA GT game, because besides a few minor tweaks, this really has it all. The main thing missing, to be the full game is some of the rule changes and things. The stuff that you couldn't just mod into the game engine, that you had to actually develop into the game engine, like the different types of rules and how the sessions worked. All the races in this, I believe, are lap-based instead of time-based that they would be in the real series. And there's no driver swaps and things like that to be able to do a longer race, but the rest of it's here. And the racing itself, the physics are quite good. The cars all look the part. The tracks, these tracks themselves, the redone ones or the new ones, look very good. So it's all definitely could have been released, in my opinion, in 2002 and been a pretty adequate game. But it was a mod. It was a free mod, and you could just go download it like you can today. So not my best qualifying. We'll be starting pretty much at the back of the pack, but we'll see how I can do from there. 7 laps around Donington. All right, here we are at the back of the grid. I'll struggle to see the lights lighting above the Porsche in front of me, but lights are up. Out, we're underway. It'll be a little bit of a scramble off the line. There's always a couple incidents, I feel. There's a stopped car here. We'll take to the grass. There's a Ferrari stopped in front. That'll help me get around a few of the cars. Got the Marcos right in front of me now. So come down towards the first corner. Everybody stacks up a bit. These are all the slower GT cars, so I should be able to get around them. Tuck it on the inside. Porsche in front of me can't seem to make up its mind. I got a Ferrari right behind me. Come down through the S's. Not really a place you'd want to pass, but desperate to get around. There we go. We'll head back up the hill. So passing about half the field there on the starting line. The starts are definitely the weakest part about the AI, but otherwise they feel pretty solid. They're racing the right lines for a GT car. They don't brake too early or accelerate too hard, which is not an easy feat in a game designed to be an F1 game. I'm pretty sure all of the AI had to be completely redone for every single track to make it all work. Oh, Porsche in front, unsuspecting the braking zone there. It is a multi-class race, so you gotta remember I'm in the quicker class, although I started in the back because I'm quite slow myself. We'll come down to the hairpin though, first lap. Somebody locked the brakes in front. Oh, we got a car way off into the gravel there. We got a bunch of cars stopped basically on the apex. I've seen them try to block you a bit coming into corners, so there is definitely some blocking code at work. We'll come out, complete the first lap. So what did I get up to? I'm up to 15th now. You can see it right on the right side of the dash next to my shifting number. On the second of 7 laps. See the field stretched out in front. Actually, some cars had pulled away from us. I'll probably end up being able to get by most of these GT cars unless I spin out or something. But the NGT cars rather, the GT cars at the front, my class, they're going to be long gone by the time I get up there. All right, come up the inside. Get down to second gear. Here we go. It is something you can definitely get used to driving. The cars, really, I just have played GTR and GTR2 earlier this week, trying to prepare some stuff, and they feel very similar. It is just a little bit harder, a little more on a knife's edge, but it's the same general feeling. It is the same engine, just a much earlier version of it. And so, something that you could probably adapt to pretty quickly if you're used to playing the GTR games. Up to the top of the hill. The start-finish line. Love all the details on the track. There's lots of custom objects and things. This is one of the best looking tracks in the whole set, but they're all pretty good quality. And even the work they did, we'll go check out some of the stock tracks that were revamped, but even the work they did on those is pretty impressive too. It's more than just a texture update. Right, closing in now on this Porsche in front. Good exit here. Oh, a little bit of oversteer on the car on exit. Oh, I could have definitely thrown it up the inside there. Basically parks on the apex of the corner. Track feels a little narrow in spots compared to the laser scan Doningtons, but overall very accurate. We got a car basically on the inside wall. We got another one, the Lambo. Let's run into the chicane and make a pass kind of without planning it. So everything is happening here on the third lap. I do break down and crash, and I've seen some pretty crazy stuff in my limited races so far. We're up to 12th place now. Maybe I can eke in top 10 out of this. There's definitely more than 10 GT cars, so we'll be not last. A little bit of oversteer coming into the first turn. Totally missed the apex of the corner. Flat out there. Down to third gear. Can use the curb on the exit. I got another yellow flag. Car parked on the inside there is a Viper, so up to 11th. Made a pass there. Station with the group in front, but we've got another car off here at the bottom of the hill, another Viper, so I've gotten up to the top 10. Definitely skill-based. Just nip the grass there, starting to throw the car around. The tires have really come alive after the first few laps. It does take a few laps of getting heat into them. Not locking up the brakes every single corner. We can actually change the dash here to take a look at the tire temps and everything. Pretty cool stuff. I think that's all part of the base game, but feels like a good part of the GT cars. Oh, slide into the chicane. The curbs and the bumpiness of them upsets the car so much. Come back into the hairpin here. Just pulling up on these guys ever so slightly, but we're only going to have a couple more laps to go as we come to the line to get it done. Viper looking up the inside. I think that's a Lamborghini, one of the Diablos that it's racing with. Once again, too deep into turn one. I can't seem to get that one right. Trying to make a move, but it isn't able to make it, loses a little bit of time pulling up now. Just easy back on the throttle, don't want to spin the tires at all. It's not a lot of recovery possible with this. I should mention I'm using, I almost do it I'm talking about there. I am using my modern Fanatec CSL 2.5 with this. Really easy to set up. Just everything kind of worked right out of the box with F1 2002. And I almost spin it out through the chicane. But minimal hassle to get everything working. The base of the sim, everything works just quite easily installing. And it feels pretty good too. It obviously doesn't quite have the feeling of modern titles. It's go very deep on the brakes, but actually works out for me even though I'm locking the tires. Come to the line to start the final lap already. Doesn't feel anything like some of the more modern titles, but for a G-Motor game, it's very comparable to GTR and GTR2. I don't actually feel that much of a difference between them, and I know there's some plugins and things that exist out there for GTR2 specifically that make it feel a whole lot better, so definitely not to that level, but for a base game, you've got some force feedback. The wheel feels like it makes sense. My wheel actually turns a bit more than the one you're seeing on screen. We had another car parked off the track there, up to 9th, right on the back of these three. So we're going to come up to the back straightaway for the last time. Out of second gear. Oh, we got my teammate in front holding them all up for me. But I don't get a good run. See if I can actually make it through the chicane. Looks like the Lamborghini is going to go up the inside of my teammate. Late on the brakes. Try to get it through without spinning the car out. Oh, able to stick right with him. Come down to the hairpin. Lock up the brakes on the inside. Downshift a little aggressively to get the car slowed down, but I am able to get up the inside of the Viper. Oh, the Lamborghini on the inside, myself as well. Trying to dip my teammate. That's the way it's done. Team orders. Maybe a little bit there, but get right behind my teammate. I think maybe 7th position on the finish. Exciting ending for that one there. So final results, was able to get up to 7th position overall. Definitely a lot of attrition. We'll take a look at the bottom. Yeah, all the way up to 26th. A few different cars out, but an exciting finish at Donington. Really great stuff. This feels very good. So let's go try out another car and another track. All right, and for the next race out, the Force One Racing Ferrari 550. It's a Ferrari V12 in it. Should be a handful, but maybe a little easier than the Lister Storm. It's quite a twitchy car. And I thought it might be fun, even though it wasn't actually on the 2002 GT calendar. As far as I know, maybe it was raced in a minor race or a non-championship round. But we'll go to Sugo because it's not a track that I had previously known too much about. All right, and for this one, we'll jump right into the race. I'll start at the back of the GT field, but ahead of the NGT cars. 7 laps around Sugo. See if I can hold it all together in the Ferrari 550. All right, so on the grid again. Can see the lights just above the Viper in front. Out, we're underway. A slow roll off the line. Hopefully nobody stalled in front this time. We'll get away, head down towards the first corner. Quite a twisty start to the lap, but this track's actually quite fast in a few places. But able to make it through all right. We'll go through a chicane here where the pit exit joins the track. Whoa, back into the Ferrari kicking out a little bit. Gotta get those tires up to temperature as we saw in the last race. Oh, GT in front. I spin out the other GT. Wow, just avoiding that one that was spinning across the track. I got away with that one, luckily. So will clobber the curb there. The car's behind, blocked by them for a second. Got a little bit of a gap now in front and in behind. We'll come to the top of the hill, though, round this right-hander, and this will plunge us downhill, so we want a good exit if we can. Not quite able to get it onto the curb, but a nice long straight here. Let the Ferrari sing. We'll come to the bottom. This is a pretty sharp right-hander down to second gear. Love how this track is in the mountains. It's very picturesque. I was reading a little bit about it. It's one of the biggest motorsports facilities in Japan, so it's surprising I haven't heard of it. I'm sure all the Super GT lovers out there are probably thinking, how could you have not heard of Sugo? But so many tracks to keep track of. Coming to a chicane. Looks like the track used to maybe go straight there. We have a little chicane to negotiate. And this will spin us back out into the front straightaway. We'll try to get the accelerator down for the hill. I find the slides in this Ferrari a lot more catchable, but they are pretty violent. But we'll come to complete lap number 1 of 7 in 10th position. Behind another Ferrari. Hopefully a little less dramatic through this section this time. You'll stay off the curbs. They're quite tall here. Understeer there, going a little bit wide through the apex. The top of the hill once again. So this track, you can see, I think it's pretty detailed, pretty nice looking for a track for F1 2002. Not quite the same fidelity that Donington was, maybe a step down from that, but still pretty good, and certainly more than good enough. I think better still than the default tracks for the sim. Oh, locking up the brakes there, almost rear-ending the other Ferrari. Need to try to sing it up the inside of him. Not going to be able to do it there. He closes the door. This car feels a little bit like you're just holding on, run a little hot there. See if I can get up the inside into the chicane. There we go. Squeeze him towards the apex. Oh, he's gonna keep it in there. How did he do that? The track's a little wider there than I could see. Now we got a Viper challenging me from behind. Oh, he's gonna have a little more speed maybe. Good draft, see if he sings it up the inside or not. No attempt, stays in line, able to keep the position. Already on the 3rd lap. Oh, maybe a challenge there to the Red Bull Ferrari. When he fades like he's going to block the inside. So the AI are not perfect by far, but they're fun to race against, which is almost better than them being maybe very conservative. They're a little goofy at times, but it does keep you on your toes and a lot of fun to just throw around the track. Oh, trying to squeeze it up the inside, but not able to. He runs very wide off the track. I don't know how they get the grip out there. I certainly can't get that. Head to the bottom of the hill, trying to get it down the gearbox without throwing it into the car. Oh, I hit the back of the Viper, no! Spin out. Oh, and they all try to get by on the grass, lose a few positions. Not my best moment. Try to collect myself from that one. Just push on forward. Still not out of reach of these 3 in front, so see if I can get back to them. We'll come up to the chicane. Car doesn't feel damaged. You can pick up damage quite easily here. I've got damage on. And the handling definitely goes away if you smack the wall or something. Oh, up the hill, shifted a little bit early up to 3rd. These guys will get a run. Oh, and a car diving in the pits, maybe damaged. Was that a Viper? Damaged that Viper. A little too much. Get that spot back at least. Got this Viper in front, taking a very bizarre line into turn 1, defending like I was going to throw it up there. Maybe saw my move at the end of the last lap. But already on the 4th lap. Ooh, can I get it on the inside? Oh, I'm in contact. It's more like touring car than GT. Able to hold on to the car though. Very busy at the steering wheel. But this car, in my opinion, is a lot more fun to drive than the Lister. Even though I spun it out, it is easier to control. If you get it sideways, it's not impossible to save it, where the Lister can be quite hard to save. So you can definitely notice, I can notice, hopefully you can as well, how different all the cars are. So really impressive that they were able to develop different suspension, different handling characteristics that, more or less match the real cars, but are all very distinct from one another and give you a lot to play with. Go up to the chicane again, down to 2nd, down to 1st. Just in line with these two. They're quite quick. I've got the AI at 100%, so maybe could have reduced that a little bit to give myself a chance. Smoking up the tires, is trying to get the throttle down to head up the hill, but losing a little bit of time again. We'll come to the line, start lap number 5, so just 3 more to go. Love the rising on the hill there. Feels a lot like Road America's front stretch. Oh, gonna do it on the inside here. This is where I made contact last lap. Barge my way through. There we go. Past the Viper. Now back to the Red Bull Ferrari here. Elbows out in this one so far. Oh, he locked it up there. So that AI making a little bit of a mistake. Not a big one. I like that. I feel like some of the sims that implement AI mistakes, they're always huge mistakes, where in reality you'd mostly have the small ones from other drivers. Just blowing a single corner. Oh no! I get the car sideways. No! So gathered it back up, but twice now in that corner, once with contact with other cars and then once all on my own, showing that I'm absolutely a superstar here. All right, see if I can try to get by this slower Porsche. Try to bide my time a little bit better instead of chucking it up the inside. Takes a much better line through the chicane than I do. See if I can exit strong. He's quite slow at the top of the hill. Sneak up the inside. All right. Dispose of him. Back up to 11th, but no sign in front of the other cars with 1.5 laps left. So kick it out of the final corner. We'll come to start the final lap. So it looks like I'm going to finish just about where I started here. Sugo is such a cool track, though, and one I want to learn a little bit more about. See if there's any versions of it that exist for more modern sims. Love seeing stuff like this when I find a random game or sim, learn about something new that I never had known existed, or maybe had seen before but didn't quite know what it was. Just try to complete this final lap, though, without any dramas. Oh, come to the top of the hill. I got a car smoking in front, so there is dramas, but not by me on the last lap. I don't know if you could see, but just at the bottom of the hill, there was a car spewing some sort of smoke here on the last lap, so we'll see if that causes any kind of weird stuff to happen. Catching very quickly these 3 in front, so maybe a car is mechanical, but trying to limp home. It's like two Vipers, nose to tail. We'll come to the chicane though, just a couple more corners to get it done. We get a car way off in the grass there. These two are quite slow, chucking up the inside down to first gear, almost losing the rear end of the car. All right, able to get a couple positions back though, up to 9th, so a top 10 all in all, despite spinning out a couple times, crashing into a few cars. A lot of fun though. Ferrari here is quite a lot of fun to race. All right, so I want to do one more race just to show off a little bit more of the content, and thought I'd do Henrik Roos's Viper, since this car was on the cover, I believe, of the GTR games, and Henrik Roos was the co-founder of Simbin themselves. Thought I could use this car, and for a track, go to Spa-Francorchamps. This is one of the default F1 2002 tracks, but I'll give you a sense of how much the default tracks were actually improved for the GT racing and what changed about them. And this race will be 5 laps at the Francorchamps circuit. This race, of course, was a 24-hour race, but not something implemented for the mod. You could do pretty long races if you wanted, but you'd have to wait for GTR to do the full long-distance races. All right, so here we are on the grid at Spa, and we're actually in the F1 grid positions before La Source. Oh, and I'm rolling backwards there. Lights are lit. Out, we're underway. Try to get away from the line. Oh, everybody's quite slow. Nowhere to go, really. Onto the grass here, past a couple cars as they all try to figure it out. We'll come up to La Source. So not able to change the starting position, which is interesting since they did so much work to other tracks. But we'll come around La Source. Maybe the GT cars started there in 2002, I'm not sure. But we'll head down the hill to the normal start-finish line for GT. And towards Eau Rouge, got a Ferrari right behind me. Come on the brakes through Eau Rouge and Radeon. And now right in the draft slipstream of the Lister Storm down the Kemmel Straight here. Can hear the Chrysler engine humming away in front of me. Get on the brakes for Lacombe. Oh, down to second gear. Cold tires still. Car slides, but I got the position. Oh, and sliding out onto the curbs, but luckily saved by the extra runoff. Lister Storm got back around. I got a Ferrari on the inside. Off camber here through the right-hander. The car's super slidey right now. If you can't tell, we'll head down the hill then. All right, try to make it a little less dramatic from here on out. This is a great track for GT cars. One of my favorites, I think a lot of folks' favorites in the GTR games, of course, being featured for the Spa 24, but also just a great circuit to race on in any car. And you can see here it's very similar to the F1 2002 version. The bones of it are the same, but a lot of new texture work and all the real advertisements. And that's one of the things with this being a mod and not an official game. There's no licensing really that they worried about. And so they were able to put in all the real advertisements and things from the actual race. All right, on the straightaway now. Head towards Blanchimont. A lot faster than the Lister Storm in a straight line. Yet again, another thing, you can just tell the cars are all different in their implementation. We'll come to the bus stop, the proper bus stop chicane. We got some smoke in front. Ooh, we'll sail it in there on the inside. There we go, that's a nice way to take it. Oh, and the Lister stayed there side by side. I think he cut the corner, I would say. Almost losing the car in acceleration. We'll come to the line then, complete the first lap up to La Source again. Just a 5-lap race again this time. Try to roll it through. But all in all, the track's not super inaccurate. I would say, though, that, especially Donington, but a lot of the custom tracks made for the game are even better than these. So it's very impressive what this team was able to put together. I don't know if all the tracks were built specifically for the mod, but I do know they were all updated to fit with the mod. Make sure the AI cars and the setups and everything worked perfectly on them. So you get a consistent experience no matter the track. And certainly a lot of fun to race on all the different tracks, and even the ones that the GT cars didn't actually race on in 2002. So we got this Ferrari right behind me. I'm still trailing the Storm, pretty much holding station after Lacombe on the first lap. Try to take a better line through here. Car still gets a little loose, but I can tell the tires are coming up to temperature a bit. So nice progression. There is weather and everything in this, of course. F1 2002 featured rain, so you do get that in the game, but spare myself, I can barely hold on to the cars in the dry, so we'll keep it in the dry for this. Right on the back of the lister now. I saw an opening there, and he actually kept it open. Could have taken the position away. Try to set him up for the straightaway. I have so much more power, it feels like, in this car, that I don't really need to pass him in the corners. Just get on the accelerator, come through this last right-hander here before the straight. This is actually when Spa was still used as public highways, and so this, we just got onto the actual public road, whereas it normally would be public outside of races. Not able to pull on him here as we'll come to Blanchimont again. We're going to run a little bit wide there, had to get out of the throttle. This version of Spa was just added to Automobilista 2. Oh, it'll come out back up the inside. We'll repeat of the first lap. He still throws it through there. Come up to the second chicane, he just jumps it like a pro. Just battle it out with this lister here for all 5 laps. I wouldn't complain about that. Come down to first gear. Control the wheel spin. I do like the interior of this car. You can tell, I think this one had a little bit extra put into it because it was Henrik's actual race car, and I don't know how much involved he was with the modding team. He's not listed on the website anywhere, but the car itself is very well done. Definitely stands out in the set of them. In the draft here on the Kemmel Straight, we'll come down to Lacombe. Hard on the brakes. The Lister is probably a lighter car, able to brake a little bit later than me. And it's the best thing about GT racing is the different approaches to the same problem. These two cars couldn't be much different within this rule set. Couldn't be much more different, really, but both doing the job here. Oh, and racing side by side with each other. Got a yellow flag I'm seeing. Oh, and a car off one of the Vipers there, so the attrition has begun. Won't get the fun of weaving through slower NGT traffic here, but see if I can come up the inside this time. Try not to duck out of it. Oh, I go a little too fast there. Slide right past him. He does the over-under. So getting past, but not making it stick. Slide job, really. Get back onto the straightaway here. A lot of work driving this car. This would be hard to do for a long race in this sim. I find it definitely easier in GTR and GTR2, like I've been saying. We're in the slipstream now. Come up to Blanchimont. Oh, I'm going to understeer right off the track almost. Almost gonna rear end the Lister. Finally, we don't go side by side through the final chicane, but I'm still stuck behind him. Oh, out on the grass there. No, just hit the wall slightly. But losing it. To the source, then hopefully the car's not too damaged here. We still got a couple laps to go. Got this Ferrari behind me, almost losing it under braking. It's too bad to hit the wall. Wanted to do a clean race in this, and I just can't. It's really difficult to drive these cars. I recommend anybody try it, and I'll try to put the links to this in the video description. It's an older game, so I may have some difficulties getting it going, but it's truly not very easy to drive. But it's still a lot of fun, and I'm just blown away by the quality of all of it. Come to the end of the straightaway. Out of second gear. The car feels fine, luckily. Just a slight tap on the wall. But once again, running out of talent a little bit. And to come to the bottom of the hill here. Got a slower lister in front. I think one just passed the other teammate. Maybe this one has some mechanicals. They're down to second gear here. Oh, he's so slow in the apex. Get him up the inside as we head onto the straightaway. And of course, he accelerates there for a minute, but clearly something wrong with the car. All right, so pick up a few positions from that up to 5th place somehow. Head down the straight. I can just see the other lister ahead, but I think he's going to be too far to catch. Through Blanchimont there, out to the bus stop. Just see him ahead, another car weaving out. Oh, lock it up, jump over the curbs. Hopefully no track cut penalty. That's pretty egregious. Start the final lap here, come up to La Source. So not the best race. Not the best races in general, but a lot of fun. When I got this set up, it was so interesting to see a lot of the same content. It seems like everything is really very similar to all the cars, really, the shape of them and everything. Just look very familiar. Of course, a lot of the same paint schemes used year to year in the FIA GT series, so it's neat to see those same cars in a completely different sim game mod. We'll come down the Kemmel Straight here. Almost that same feeling you get when you see something in real life that you've seen on TV before. Oh, still sliding all over the place. See if I can hold it together for just this one last lap. Just roll it on through this right-hander is probably the trickiest corner. A lot of skid marks there from something. Shifting there, oh, right out to the edge of the curb. I'm trying to put some time in, but very not easy to catch these cars. Keep this car on the track, sliding all over the place. It seems like they were pretty proud of how difficult the cars were to drive, just in that it meant it was realistic. So I don't know how realistic it is. There's a lot going on here, clearly. But onto the straightaway for the final time. We'll head towards Blanchimont. See if I can make the final chicane, the bus stop, without any dramatics for once. Just nip the grass there, of course. Get it nice and woed down. First gear corner, a little extra slow coming through, but no pressure from behind. We'll get through the second chicane as well. Try not to send it into the grass this time. Come across the line. Oh, fun racing at Spa. So this is where it all began. Simbin's GT Racing 2002. You can really see the groundwork put in place here and why this was so impressive and really talked about within all the sim racing circles of the time. Amazing to see what this team was able to go on and do, and it's a shame that they're not around anymore, but they definitely did some great work back in the day. It was fun looking at this one. There's a few other really cool mods for F1 2002 that I want to take a look at as well. But I hope you enjoyed this, a bit of a walk through history, maybe some of you didn't know about. But thank you for watching. I'll see you all again next time.